My name is Emily Halevy, and I am interviewing Lindsey Harrelson for Georgia State University's Women's March Oral History Project. The date is February 14th, 2017, and the interview is taking place at Georgia State University. Just for the record, do you want to spell your name?
Sure. LindseyHarrelson.
Okay. I'm going to just nod my head so I don't interrupt your stream of thought or questions or anything.
Okay.
So don't think that I'm not paying attention to you or amused by what you say. I just have to keep quiet.
Okay.
I'll probably take some notes from time to time, so that just means that I'm listening to you and not ignoring you. And obviously, yes and no questions don't really do a whole lot, so the more you can elaborate, the better.
Okay.
All right.
Great.
Yay. So why don't you start with telling me a little bit about yourself, when you were born, where you were born, a little bit about your parents.
Okay. Well, I was born in Auburn, Alabama, in 1987, so I'm 29. I grew up super small town, but a college town, so I had, I guess, some good exposure to diversity, different classes, different races, things like that. I spent a lot of time in high school in the math team, and that allowed me to be friends with a lot of people who were really different than me, especially when it comes to people of color or minorities. And let's see, my parents, my mom is a nurse. My dad is, he was an HVAC technician, so he worked on air conditioning and heat and stuff like that. They're divorced now. They got divorced when I was in college. And I have 2 little sisters and some nieces and nephews. But yeah, from Alabama, small town, and Alabama definitely has the reputation for being a little not progressive. Now I'm a teacher, and I have taught pre-K for 4.5 years. I taught kindergarten for 1 year, and now I'm teaching first grade. And I'm really passionate about education. I'm very interested in teaching all kinds of students, but I think that what I really want to do is work with kids that don't necessarily have the best opportunity to have a good education. And so that's what I'm doing right now, is working in the neighborhood that I live in, a low-income neighborhood, marginalized, very poverty-stricken, and I'm neighbors with my students, and I love it, and it's really hard.
When did you move to Atlanta?
I moved to Atlanta in 2009 when I graduated from Auburn, and so I guess I've been here 7 years. So this is home, and I love Atlanta.
Obviously, it's a lot different than Auburn.
Yes.
But what are some of the striking differences that you...
Atlanta is a big city, obviously. First off, there's terrible traffic all the time, so that's a big difference. It's not where my family lives, so that feels hard for me sometimes. But it's so diverse here. The most diverse place in the South, I'm sure, outside of Florida. And that is it feels really nice to me. I don't like being surrounded by the same kind of people, and I like differences. I like people who are really different than me. And Atlanta has a lot of progressive attitudes as far as I don't know, just in general, the political climate in Atlanta is more my style, more progressive minded, liberal. And in Auburn, I sort of always felt that, but it was not really okay to have that belief or attitude, mostly surrounded by people who didn't believe the same way. So I'm not always the most outspoken person. So when I moved to Atlanta, there's a lot of freedom in finding out that there's so many people like me here, and then I could finally fit somewhere with people who believed similarly.
Do you have any family members who participated in activist movements before?
I don't think so, no. In fact, a lot of my family was like, why are you marching? What are you doing? Why are you doing that? Be careful and things like that. Like, they didn't really get it. So.
And why did you march?
I guess for a lot of reasons. The day after the election, or 3 a.m. when I found out the news, I was sad. It was very sad. And but more than sad. Like, I was very devastated, feeling like something that I believe so much in is being lost to me. And I don't know if what I'm feeling is hysteria. I don't know if I'm being dramatic or I'm being irrational. But a lot of other people feel the same way as me. And, I need to put my feelings somewhere. I need to do something with that. And when I found out that you and Ms. Moore were organizing a trip, I was like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. If that actually happens, because, it just felt like something to focus on, but I feel like from November to January, I wasn't really sure if it was going to happen. So there was a lot of I don't know. And then on top of that, I marched because I believe in what sort of the values and mission statement of what the Women's March is about. Being a woman, I feel like I have a stake in what happens to myself and what happens to my friends and what happens to women across the country. And I feel like if I don't use my voice and everyone didn't use their voice, then none of us would say anything and nobody would ever know that there was a problem. And also, I feel really passionate about my students and the people that live in my neighborhood, my neighbors. And I feel like I want to be activists for them, or do something something as an ally, in some way. I don't feel like I can save anybody or that marching is a way to save someone. But it's when people can't do something and you can, you should do it, So that's a lot of why I marched.
Yeah. And just for the record, when you said you about who organized the bus, you meant me.
Yes.
Emily Hallaby.
Yes.
Morna told me to say that, so.
Okay.
It's on the record now.
Perfect.
And just in case it wasn't already clear, which march did you attend and why did you choose to attend that march instead of the one in Atlanta?
Oh, I see. I attended the Washington, D.C. march, the Women's March in Washington, D.C., and I think it was just more about opportunity to go there than anything else. I think I would have been fine marching in Atlanta, but there's something really powerful about going there and being afforded the opportunity to go. It felt like there was no reason to say no. And then, I love DC. And on top of that, it's the central place where people are buzzing about politics. And I'm very inspired by the March on Washington that Martin Luther King and the Civil Rights group organized. And that was only 200,000 people or something, right? So yeah, I was really inspired by that. And just to think wow, we could be doing something similar to what other people did, and knowing that the movement they started accomplished things, and we can see the effects of that. So just having that sort of thought of wow, this could be a really powerful thing.
And you also kind of addressed this as well, but just to circle back to it, what issue is most important to you that kind of sprung out of the march?
I think I have a few things that are really important to me. I think women's rights and women being in charge of themselves and their bodies and feeling empowered, and also being of equal standing with every other member in society. I think that that's really important. But I also think that the sort of plight of people of color in our country is also really important, in that when, like, women are maybe not seen so as much anymore, but were marginalized for a long time, and so there's like some sort of solidarity between women and people of color, and these other sort of oppressed or marginalized groups. And so those two issues are important to me.
And which issues did you see represented at the march?
Do you mean like with, I don't know, like signage or speakers or just...
Yeah, both.
Okay.
Chants.
Yeah, I mean, well, I did hear a lot of people who were not happy with Donald Trump and the Trump administration, and were voicing those, upsets that they had with him. I saw women and men and children and all kinds of people addressing sexual assault and harassment, rape, Black Lives Matter, gun violence, what else was there? Education and, teachers and children and sort of like their place in our society and how we see them and honor them. Trans lives was highlighted. Immigrants and refugees were highlighted through signs. People had, of course, everyone had like a very clever sign. But the speakers, spoke a lot about these issues related to marginalized people and oppressed people. And what else?
Were there any that you were surprised to see there?
I don't think there were any issues really that I was surprised to see, but I think like some of the, sometimes it was like strange or maybe like not uncomfortable, but just I was like a little surprised to see how candid people would speak about things, or speaking about something like rape. Like I saw like several signs about that, or people talking about sexual assault, and I don't know, just to be like so public talking about that when it's not something that's really usually very public was surprising, like in a good way. Like, yes, like I'm so glad that there's so many people here that believe similarly. I don't think I was really that surprised by a lot of any issues that were brought up, but more so just like bringing it to the front and kind of speaking out about it.
Yeah, if anything, I was more surprised at just how inclusive the march was, and how intersectional it was, and how many different issues it covered.
Yeah. Oh, and that's another thing that was sort of interesting, I know, is like after the march, there were some conversations going on about pro-life groups and maybe being like excluded from the march. But personally, like I didn't even consider that. And I also saw pro-life people there, and I didn't see any issues like surrounding them. So I don't know. I just kind of think that was like another interesting piece that I was able to sort of dissect afterwards.
Yeah, it felt like everybody had a voice.
Yeah, and like seeing children like walking and parents with their babies and like everyone wearing the pussy hat, like and one of the girls with us was like, wow, how do people know about this? And it's like, how can you not know about it? I mean, like, just imagine across the globe all these women and men and children and all these different people knowing to wear that, and that kind of, I mean, it's just a piece of clothing, but it makes a powerful statement, I guess.
Well, do you remember how you learned about the march and also the pussy hats and all of the different things? Do you remember how you learned about all of it?
I feel like it was probably towards the end of November, maybe, that I remember you, Emily, and Connie pretty soon afterwards texting if anyone was interested. But that was kind of probably how I found out there was even going to be something protest related. I don't think I read about it online or saw really, like, it wasn't on my radar really until that moment. So it was pretty soon after the election, I'd say.
And you wore a pussy hat, right?
I did. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you make it?
No, I got it from Anne, maybe, on the bus. Yeah, she made it and passed out a lot of them to people. So
yeah,
that was very cool. Like, just the amount of people who were making those and giving them to people. Like, I saw on Facebook people saying, like, oh, I see you're going to the march. Like, can I make you this? Can I crochet or knit this hat for you? And that's cool.
Mm-hmm. So was this your first time participating in some kind of protest?
Yep. Yes. I have never marched before, or done a sit-in or anything like that. So, yeah.
What do you, why was it so important that you participate now?
I think that I felt, and I still feel at this time that there's such a interesting trajectory happening in our country, like politically and socially, between different people groups, and there's this very, like, sort of I don't know, I feel like we're at this bubbling point where something really big is going to be happening, and I don't want to be on the wrong side of history, and I don't want to be a person who didn't do anything. So it was important to go to the march and to, be there, because I don't know, I just wanted, I don't know, I want to do something that matters, and does make a statement about how I feel. And it's interesting because I realized, like, afterwards, when there's lots of course, like, social media fallout from, different groups of people thinking that it was, not a good idea to go or whatever, but just finding out afterwards and realizing afterwards that this probably, like, made a big statement to my family, who wasn't very supportive of what I did. And not that really, like, can change anything, but just them knowing, like, that's important to me. I don't know. That's just something that kind of came out of it.
Did they share any reactions with you?
My sister, one of my younger sisters, and she was excited that I went and thought that it was really cool that I went. And she lives in Kentucky, and so, like, I wish she had gotten to go to some march. She told me, or my dad did maybe, that in Lexington they, like, shut down the streets from a march there, and I was like, Kentucky? Like, no way. My dad initially didn't really say anything supportive or against it, but he afterwards kind of said, well, good for you, like, good job, like, you did something that was important to you. My mom, who voted for Donald Trump, just told me to be careful, but wasn't really, like, antagonistic against me. My aunt, though, asked me, like, why I was marching, and I kind of felt like it was a little, like, digging at me, but I guess I know how she feels, so it doesn't surprise me too much. But I mean, I'm glad she asked, at least she didn't just not say anything, I guess. But in my family, I feel like there's not as much support for being, like, progressive minded, because it's seen as not being Christian, and I don't feel that way at all, but that's, I think how my family feels. And so in some ways I think they see it as, like, turning your back on your faith, because you're not pro-life, or you're not, like, supportive of the president and praying for him every day, like, okay, well, I don't agree with him, and I don't agree with a lot of what he's doing, and so I'm not going to pray for him every day. So I don't think it's God's will, whatever,
Mm-hmm. Did your dad vote for Trump too?
My dad can't vote because he has a felony charge for when he was like in his younger 20s, had possession of marijuana. So he can probably do the paperwork to get to vote, since President Obama did some legislation for felons to vote. But so my dad's never voted my entire life.
Wow.
But he's always like had an opinion on it, but never really like been, I don't know. He's not really ever shared with me his frustration with not getting to vote. But I just know that he can, so.
And you can decide if you want to keep that on the record or not.
Okay.
Since it is fairly sensitive information. Yeah. So when we're done, you can make that decision, or you can make the decision later. But that's really interesting.
Yeah. But he told me before, a couple of months or so, probably before the election, he said, like, do not vote for Donald Trump. Like, he is crazy. You need to vote for Hillary. And he's, like, not even a Hillary supporter or anything like that. Not anything like what I am. But he was like, you need to vote for Hillary, like, if you know what's good for this country. And I was like, is my dad having a mental break? Like, who is he? So that was kind of cool. I was like, wow, I never thought I would agree with my dad in something like this. And the only thing my grandmother could say, and my grandmother has voted for President Barack Obama both terms, which I didn't know for a long time. So I was like, my granny is a secretive liberal, which is wonderful, and obviously where I get it from. But she just would always say, do not vote for that man with the yellow hair. So she is funny. But, I mean, I agree with her. I always thought most of what was coming out of his mouth was not anything that I wanted to be related to leading our country. So anyways, I don't know how I got off on those tangents, but.
Well, I think it's fascinating. Family histories and how you managed to not know your grandparent or even really your parents' voting history.
Yeah.
I mean, we're just so open about it. It can get kind of ugly. But.
Yeah. Well, I remember growing up and kind of being sort of aware of presidential elections, at least when I got older, and remembering that like our teachers wouldn't share with us who they voted for. And so this election, we did, a unit on elections and voting in first grade. Not that they like know a whole lot about it, but they were like, who did you vote for? And I was like, well, like I just didn't know what to say, if I should say, or like how it was gonna like come out, and if any parent would be upset, which like no, they weren't, or wouldn't be. But I did tell my students like eventually, but in that moment I just was like, I felt this like, don't tell them, because it's always like a secret. And then the next day after the election, they were like, I hate Donald Trump. And I was like, oh, me too.
Did you tell them that you went on the march?
Yeah, I did. What was really cool for me, like just to reflect on, was we were studying Martin Luther King Jr. for a couple of weeks at school, and we decided to do a march just with my students. And I only have 10 students, so it's not really, and probably like 2 or 3 of them were absent this day. But we read one of the children's books about the March on Washington, and we did a march like in our neighborhood. And one of the things we say, which this, but one of the things that we say is like a poem, and at the end of the poem is love is power. And so that was our like chant that we were gonna say like in the neighborhood. And I was like, okay, whatever, like we're doing this, we made a banner that says love is power, and we're just walking down the sidewalk at 9:30 in the morning, and nobody's out anywhere except for like a couple of guys on their porch or something. And we're just, love is power, like walking down the sidewalk. And I like got this weird like feeling of like, I feel so powerful right now. And I'm standing with like 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds who are screaming love is power with me. And there's 10 of us walking on a sidewalk in a small neighborhood in Atlanta. And I feel like we're really powerful, like we're just 10 people, but the fact that we're all saying the same thing at the same time, I don't know, it was like, maybe I was just being like a little emotional about it or something, but it just felt really cool that that was happening with them. And then I told them that I was going to the Women's March, and they're like, why and what for, and which is hard to explain to 6 and 7-year-olds. But I did show them a video of just people marching, and like, of course, they're like mesmerized. Like, there's so many people. It's like a sea of people, and explaining to them that was the same place that Martin Luther King Jr., led the March on Washington for the Civil Rights Movement. So that was, I don't know, yeah, that was kind of cool, and I did share that with them.
Which neighborhood are you in?
English Avenue. It's right next to the Georgia Dome.
Did you get that same kind of feeling at the DC March?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it was just the coolest thing to be surrounded by so many people and to feel like we all believe in something together at the same time in the same place, and we're all chanting things, and you're looking at signs and you're thinking, oh my gosh, their sign says the same thing as mine, or I believe that too. And it was really cool, just like walking alongside people, and then also being like with my little like 4-pack, which became a 6-pack of friends, and us just talking about things. I mean, I can't even really remember what we talked about, but the whole time we're always like, wow, like when you would stop and like look around, like just wow, and really cool thinking that all these people were brought together for the same idea, centered around not hating someone, but standing up for something that you do believe in and you want to see in our world.
Did you have any expectations or hopes for outcomes before the march?
Well, honestly, I felt like I sort of was like dreading a little bit as far as like physically, because I was like, I'm going to be so tired from sleeping on the bus 2 nights and then standing up all day, and like, what's the weather going to be like? Am I going to go to the bathroom? Like things like that. Like those were sort of like some worries I had. But then like, I don't know where the energy or adrenaline came from, but it was like, I had it all day, and I like didn't even get tired when we finally got on the bus, because there was just like, everyone's talking. And, but I guess I just hoped that and I wanted for like it to be like safe, and I think there had been some talk about some people like throwing stink bombs or something. I don't know. And I was just like, wow, I really hope that doesn't happen. Like, I really hope it's just a peaceful protest, and which is our First Amendment right, and that people can just say what they believe and nobody really gets mad at them for saying what they believe, because that's just like our right, So I hoped for that, and I wanted that, and I wanted like no sort of like negative stuff to be associated with the march, because I think, and maybe it's just my bias, but I think that a lot of times liberals kind of get like, like something negative happens and it's like, oh, and then they did this. And like, maybe that's just my bias, but I was like, I just don't want them to be able to say anything bad about this march, like, I just want them to be like, we have nothing bad we can say about it. And then of course I like hoped that afterwards there would be this movement to, with some sort of momentum to like, to push whatever our issues are forward, and that people would hear what we had to say, and our senators and representatives and people in power would be like, wow, like, look at all these people who are saying this to us. Like, we should do something about that, right? And then, it's been frustrating in Georgia with our senators, because I don't feel like my part of the constituency is represented. And so that's been like a little frustrating, is to feel like, oh my gosh, like I can't even believe that I'm not being listened to by my senator, and he's just, I don't know, like singing Donald Trump's praises, and it just feels so like defeating to feel that it feels defeating to be like, we're on this march, okay, and like even before that there was a lot of momentum, like November and December and part of January, to bring to light these issues and to bring people together and to kind of like be more transparent in politics. And then, like, you know, after his inauguration, all these executive orders and just things that it's just feeling like I have no control, like I'm only one person. And also, I was part of a large group of people across the globe, and we're like 4 million or whatever, and all of us can't even do anything. I don't know, like those feelings like hit me after, you know, a couple weeks into his presidency. But I mean, you know, those things like come and go. Like you feel really bad one day, like I can't do anything, and you're hearing all this news, and then the next day the Supreme Court or, you know, the federal courts are like, no, like here's checks and balances, and you're like, oh yes, like there's a win, you know.
Yeah. Yep, I go through the same thing. Okay, so describe the group you traveled to the march with.
Well, there were, what was it, like 48 women and 1 man? Was that what it was? Something like that?
I think the final count was 46 women and 1 man.
Oh, okay. And
47 women and 1 man.
Okay. We're a good crew. Unfortunately, I didn't get to know everyone as well as I would have liked to, but that's okay. The energy was there. But I guess just people from all different walks of life, older women and younger women and middle-aged women, and then the 1 man, and and then like within the group of people that went, my friends that went with me were my roommate Clarice, and I don't know if I'm supposed to say her name. Okay, she is a social worker, and she works at an insurance agency. And then my other friend Cassie, which she works for Health and Human Services, and she investigates civil rights things. She's a lawyer. And then Clarice's friend Francine, who's also a social worker and works with her at her insurance place. But those people are like really important people to me that I feel like really connected to them in so many ways, and I look to them and I'm like inspired by the things that they say and the way that they live and how they like serve so well the things that they're passionate about. So like traveling with them was really cool because like I've been friends with Clarice for a really long time, and I've been friends with Cassie since we were like in diapers basically. So that was like really cool, and it was all our first march and our first like protest thing. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about them other than they're just inspiring people.
So you said you started as a 4-pack, but then you turned into a 6-pack?
Yeah, so Cassie's friend came down from Maryland and like thankfully had the forethought to meet us at the the metro that we were traveling on, the one that we met at, the bus station. I can't remember what that was called. Oh, Stadium, whatever. Anyway, she met us there. And then by some sort of miracle, Francine's friend from Maryland also came down, and we didn't meet up with her until like noon or later in the day. But we were like getting her. Like we were getting her in our group no matter what. So like it was kind of crazy. I can't believe we actually like met with her because cell service was crazy and there were so many people there and like not knowing exactly where we are. So yeah, we expanded our group and kind of became this, you know, little montage of people.
Yeah. How was it with 6 people getting through? Well, first, did you get to hear the rally?
We heard part of it. We got there and we didn't get to hear Ashley Judd's awesome spoken word poem, but we did hear, yes, we got there somehow and we didn't even know where we were going. We're just like following crowds of people. We got there and we heard probably like 2 hours of the rally, And then during the rally, they were like, are you, we're still marching. Like, even though they said we're not, or I don't even know, like, how that all got publicized, that there wasn't going to be a march or something because there's so many people. But they were like, no matter what you hear, we are still marching. And so we're like, yeah, okay, good. And we couldn't get there. There were so many people trying to walk to the new march route that we just couldn't get there. Like, we were inching along little by little. And so we did end up like seeing it come through and when we got to the Washington Monument area. But the rally was really cool, and like hearing different people speak, and sometimes you couldn't really hear what they were saying, but then like you could. Like, I remember hearing some children, or like a little girl maybe, and she was saying "Si se puede," and like that was like, I'm not crying, but I am, because that's amazing, that this child has a platform in this space, So.
Did you recognize any of the other speakers?
Yeah. Alicia Keys, right? Am I thinking right? Alicia Keys? Well, anyways, Madonna, Amy Schumer, Angela Davis. That was cool. I was really excited about Angela Davis because I just think she's really awesome. And so I was really excited about hearing her. I didn't really hear everything that she said, but I did hear her, so that was really cool. Madonna was a little crazy, though.
Yeah, going back to the negative fallout, she was probably one of the more negative aspects.
Yeah, I was a little disappointed because, and actually, like, even though she said something a little crazy, like being around so many people and everyone's kind of like, yeah, we're with you, Madonna, like, yes, like the love. And then she's like, often I fantasize about blowing up the White House. And everyone's like, like, we're not with you on that. And like, yeah, like everything else, yes, like love and like we're together and all that unity. But let's not be really crazy, We needed one of those like Forrest Gump mic cut moments on her. And that's all I have to say about that.
Any other speakers that you remember?
No, I can't remember.
Can you describe kind of the crowd around you while you were listening to the rally? Do you remember anybody around you, or what was the mood of the crowd?
Well, there were so many different types of people around. I mean, it was literally like the feeling of America, the melting pot. Like there's people having these super heavy New York accents next to us, and we met some people from San Francisco who flew there just to come, and you see like these old hippie looking people and lots of women of color, children, people in wheelchairs, like veterans, like just things like that. And the mood of the crowd really felt like people wanted to march. Like they wanted to march. And a lot of times we'll get a little frustrated with the speakers talking for so long, and then people start chanting like, march, 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 march. I was like, yeah, march, march, march. I think people were just kind of like antsy, like that's what we want to do. We're here to march. We want to march, and you're saying wonderful things. But yeah, it felt like just you're so close to everyone there that at one point I was like, am I claustrophobic? Do I have an actual fear? But it was fine.
And the mood was good?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, everyone was, even though people were like chanting march, 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 like it was exciting, and I don't know. Yeah, we were definitely happy in our group. We were laughing and smiling and having fun.
So did you end up getting to march? You didn't get to march?
We didn't actually participate. I thought we did, but found out later we didn't. But we didn't. We weren't in the official like march that happened at whatever time the speakers finally decided to finish speaking. But we were definitely like marching with people along different ways, and like people are chanting and everyone's kind of like walking together and you hear a band behind you. So like that's why I thought we definitely were in it. But I just consider it like the unofficial sort of like, you know what, like we're gonna make this march happen kind of thing. Like maybe there's an official march over there, but we're also doing ours here too. We're just gonna march all over Washington, you know? We're too many people to do one road or whatever, one route.
It literally looked like that from the pictures.
Insane. I can't even believe, like when people say 500,000, I'm like, no. There were 1 million people there. I believe, like, I'm Donald Trumping it. I'm like, no, I looked out into the crowd and like, I saw. Because it was a lot of people.
What time, so where did you, if you ended up marching, where did you end up getting the metro back to stadium?
Yes, we did. So like after the rally happened, or during it, I don't even know. We made our way over to the Washington Monument area. And there were a lot of people like lounging out there. We finally got to see a porta potty, which was nice. But yeah, we like kind of sat down there and just heard and watched the march that we saw, and met different people, took pictures of other people, just kind of like this cool like camaraderie thing happening. Like, and I was telling Morna earlier that it was kind of like after a football game, like, you know, growing up in Auburn and like the SEC, like football's everything, and when you win, like the whole town is excited and everyone's your friend and nobody's mad at anybody. I felt like that. Like, everyone here's my friend and I don't know you, but we're connected right now. My friend Cassie was saying, like, she was like, I could get a high five from anyone. I could probably get a hug from anyone, which I was like, yeah, that's exactly how it feels. Like, everyone here would just be friendly with you. And then we went to the Smithsonian to try to find something to eat. And that was interesting because while we were there, I saw people like wearing Make America Great hats and inauguration shirts, and I was like, oh yeah, like the inauguration was yesterday. Like it was like, I just didn't believe it yet. So there's like this interesting like mixed crowd happening. So there wasn't any like conversation had with anybody, or I didn't see anything negative occur, but just that was like kind of a weird thing that I thought about. Like, oh, this whole like town was like devoted to the inauguration of Donald Trump yesterday, and then today it wasn't.
And today it's all pussy hats.
Yes, exactly. And wonderful signs. That was another thing that was really cool. Like outside of the Smithsonian, people were like kind of like honoring their signs and like laying them out like you would like flowers after someone died, and there were women like walking around and kind of like placing them different ways, like curating it, and people were taking pictures, and I was like, this is really cool. And then I found out later that they were collecting the signs for part of history, which I told my cousin because she was like, just like liberals who love the environment so much to leave their signs everywhere. I was like, no, it's not trash, it's history, and you're welcome.
Do you remember which Smithsonian museum it was?
Nope.
That's right.
No, I don't remember which one it was.
So for the signs, did you carry a sign, and were there others that you liked? If so, tell me about them.
Oh gosh, I should probably have like looked back at my pictures. Yeah, I carried one that said women's rights, and then it was like the equal sign, like the human rights campaign sign, our human rights. And my friend, like Cassie, had one that said girls just want to have fundamental rights, and Clarice's said, oh, what did it say? It was something from Obama's final address. It was like, we stand or fall as one, something like that. Rise or fall as one. Man, I saw a lot of good like education signs that I was kind of like, oh, darn, missed my opportunity making a teacher sign. I don't know what I saw that I can't even like think right now of what. Like one sign that I like loved, but also like didn't love, just said sad. And I was like, that is like exactly how I feel. Sad. I don't love so much the ones that kind of like make fun of someone else's like appearance, or like make fun of someone's just for the sake of making fun of them. So like some of those signs, I wasn't like offended by them. Like people could say whatever they want to say, but I loved more the ones that were more like proactive and not necessarily like attacking, if you know what I mean. Like not like a big fan of like Cheeto Man or whatever, things like that. But I do like the ones that are like, you know, no hate and like more love and, you know, like no human is illegal and things like that are just kind of more like my fundamental beliefs instead of like more attacking of a person. But that's just me personally.
Mm-hmm. My favorite was the reference to The Big Lebowski.
Oh, what was that one?
The shut the fuck up, Donnie, you're out of your element.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good one.
What about chants? Did you chant?
Yes. What did we say?
And what were your favorites?
I don't even remember really. I mean, one was like, hey, hey, ho, ho, Donald Trump's got to go. We don't need a creepy tweeter. We need a leader, something like that. My coworker, her brother is a rap artist, and a Christian rap artist, and she had gone to the MLK March in Atlanta the week before, and so she had shared with our class the march, and he has a song on his album it's like, love and truth, I'm here for that. Beauty and grace, I'm here for that. So I tried to get that started with my group, but it didn't really happen. But I just like things that are more like, yeah, like positive and like empowering of the people that they're about, and not necessarily like, I'm not sure what creepy tweeter like accomplishes, but it's fine if people want to say that, and I definitely chanted along, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I tried to get my group to sing Power to the People.
Oh.
And I couldn't get that one going either.
Well, I feel like at one point, we were in some sort of square somewhere, and there were people singing, like, well, I went down to the river to pray. And that was cool, because, like, I know that song, so I was, like, singing that along with them. And I think we heard, like, well, maybe that was... So after this march, I went to the Atlanta airport protest, and that I remember more chants and like songs more clearly than I do the one in DC. So
yeah. I'm sure sleep deprivation had something to do with it.
Yeah, right? Well, I took a lot of video and photos, which I need to like give to Morna so that, you know, this could just be like documented.
Mm-hmm. So we didn't really go into it, but on the ride up to DC, can you describe that experience?
Well, the bus had a fire, which was not really a fire. It was kind of more like smoke, but it was very interesting to be like, oh, we're going to DC, and then like, fire on the back of the bus. I was like, oh no, like the sort of, what is it, like, you know, now we're everything's gonna start happening, like conspiracy, you know, like then we're gonna get a flat tire and then our battery's gonna go out, and but yeah, I think that I was really excited, like driving from our house over to where we were meeting in Decatur, because we were driving. Cassie came over to carpool with us, and then her keys got locked in the car, and then because of that, we had to like drive to her apartment, but she lives really close, and get her keys. And because of that, we got our metro passes, and so we were like, yes, like karma like happened for us, and it was really good because we got our metro passes, which we didn't think we were gonna get in time. And then they were like the inauguration passes, because she was like, oh, it's like part of history, we should get them. And I was like, ugh, I don't even want to think about the inauguration. And then we got there, and like, I don't know, really exciting, like seeing all the people there and people coming to say goodbye. And yeah, it was a good ride up, and I feel like I slept pretty decently and like had good chats with people sitting next to me, and yeah, there's a lot of excitement on the way up.
What all did you bring with you for the ride and for the march?
Not very much, pretty minimal. I'm a very like minimal packer. Clarice brought a lot of stuff. She doesn't want to be unprepared. We brought like wipes, we brought phone chargers, hand sanitizer, little snacks like Cheez-Its and stuff, a change of pants, change of underwear, because you never know what's going to happen, and just like that clear backpack that we didn't even need, really. We were just trying to follow the rules. A blanket, a pillow. Yeah, not very much.
So the clear backpacks. So I don't know about you, but like I was super worried about security and law enforcement and like you said, like making sure we followed the rules and
yeah,
making sure that the banners didn't have sticks or anything that could be construed as a weapon.
Right.
What, in your impression of the day's events, how was law enforcement?
Awesome. I mean, everyone was super nice and really helpful, and I didn't notice anything kind of like astray that went on. One thing that was like really cool that we noticed like as soon as we got there was I can't remember what they were called, something like ambassadors, but those people wearing like the yellow vests, and they were like, oh, go this way, or like if you had a question you could ask them, where are we going for this, or like where are the speakers going to be, and just like natives in DC kind of like helping navigate you and making you feel welcome. So that was really cool, like just these volunteers who came out on a Saturday like early in the morning to help people, you know, be as efficient as they could be in getting to the places they needed to get to. I personally didn't really like talk with any law enforcement or security people at like Smithsonian, but nothing really. But yeah, no, everyone was. I didn't feel like there was any issues or. Yeah, nice.
Yeah, and what did you think about the media coverage?
I wasn't really very aware of it, like, while we were there. I feel like maybe I saw, like, a truck. Maybe I saw a couple of people reporting and cameras and stuff like that. But I wasn't super aware of it. But after the march and we, like, get service again and you can get on Facebook and read the news, like, that, it was a flood. I mean, I felt like, I don't even know. Like, I've never seen my Facebook like this. I've never seen literally every status, every update, everything be related to the Women's March. Like, even people who would like never normally post about something like that, posting about it. And that was like, whoa, because I mean, at the time, I didn't know there was a march in Antarctica. I didn't know what was the number in Atlanta, like, what is it?
65,000.
Yeah, 65. I didn't know that many people, because they were expecting like 10 maybe, you know. I just didn't know. I didn't know Kentucky was gonna happen. I didn't know Arkansas, you know. I just didn't know all that was happening, and just reading all of that and what people had to say, I mean, and most of it positive, was really, really cool, and really, it felt really like affirming that we were part of that movement, and so many people saw that, and so many people stood in solidarity alongside everyone and us, you know. That was really cool. And I think, I mean, I remember talking with my grandmother after the march, and she was just asking me like how it was and if I was safe and stuff like that, and she was like, yeah, well, they kind of covered it a little bit, and she lives in Kentucky. They kind of covered it a little bit, and it just sounded like people were doing crazy things. And I was like, interesting. Like, I was like, what did they say? Because, I mean, I didn't see any crazy things, and nothing I had read about was crazy. I was like, Madonna, you know, maybe, or like, maybe like the day before, I know there was like protesters arrested at the inauguration. So I don't know, that was just kind of interesting. I was like, that's like the first time I heard something like negative kind of be associated with it. And maybe that's just the audience that is in Kentucky. But yeah, all the articles I read, all the posts, I mean, really cool.
How did you and your group manage to stay together?
We would say 6-pack, and then everyone would have to be like, hoo-hoo, you know, and just kind of like check in with each other. We never got separated. Like, we were never more than 3 or 4 feet from each other at any time. Yeah, I don't know. We just kind of like, I was always checking to make sure like everyone was, and you know, like there's times where you can become sort of like unaware because you're taking a picture or you're zoning out or whatever. But I think everyone was really good about making sure we were all together and we needed to stay together. And we're just aware that that was a need we were going to have that day.
And where did the 6-pack come from?
The name 6-pack? Well, our meeting with whoever, those experts on how to organize in protests and stuff, they told us to be in 4-packs. And then we were like, oh, the 4-pack, you know, our little 4-pack. And then when we got our 2 other people, it's like, oh, our 6-pack. And we have to say 6-pack. And then everyone kind of is like, oh, 6-pack. Like, you've been socialized to like turn and look and find out who's saying that.
So do you want to elaborate a little bit more on that meeting and when it was? And
oh gosh, when was it? It was like the week before we went, the 1 week before, at Suburban Nursery School, and it seemed like there were probably like 30 or 40 people there, and then we had someone talk with us from the City of Decatur Police Department, and her friend who had some expertise in DC political scene, sort of like protest scene stuff, not really exactly sure. But they just shared with us lots of, you know, tactics and ideas and tricks of the trade and how to be safe and smart and de-escalate tactics and things like that. And honestly, like really good information, but some of that stuff I was just like, we didn't even need that. Like, nobody was needing to be de-escalated, you know? Like, nobody was aggressive and nobody came at me and I didn't go at anybody, you know? And, so yeah, they shared really good information. It kind of got me like pumped up about it, like just hearing them talk about it, and then like, not, you know, the clear backpack thing. I feel like there was no way to regulate that. I mean, at the time it was like, we have to get a clear backpack, like no matter what. And then once you were there, it was like, who's checking this? You know, like who's making sure everyone here has a clear backpack? And how are you going to prevent people?
Yeah, the one thing that stood out was when Cassie said, Cassie Yoder, the woman who spoke to the group, the DC person, she was like, yeah, make sure, or maybe it was Lieutenant Ross, make sure that, you know, if you're in a crowd, stay at the edge of the crowd, so if there's a problem, you can get out easily. And I remember multiple times thinking, there's no edge to this crowd.
Yes. That's so true. Yeah. I can't remember if I've said this already because I did tell it to Morna, but one thing that I thought before going to the meeting, I think might have told you this, but you know, there was like a part of me thinking like, oh, this is like a little bit like risky, you know, like there can be aggressive people and, you know, you're protesting, so sometimes that can be, it could turn the wrong way, you know? So I just had those thoughts. And then like after the meeting, and like literally everyone there is a woman, and, or at least I'm pretty sure everyone there is identifying as a woman. I was like, wow, that's really going to be a comforting thing. And it really was. Like, it really was. I mean, of course there were like men there too, but they were like allies, you know? It's like, oh, it's just like really cool thing to sort of think about is I'm surrounded by women and women allies, and I'm not even scared. I'm not scared of anything, you know, like from the crowd, you know. I'm scared of policies. But yeah, that was a really cool thing to reflect on. And I mean, like, in saying that, like, I'm not untrustworthy of men or anything like that, but, you know, like woman to woman, like we're just comforting people.
Yeah, I remember recognizing just how like loving and calm the crowd was, and thinking, this is what the world would be like if women ran the world.
Yes. Ugh. Yeah. We need more women to do more things.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we talked about the 6-pack. We talked about... were there any moments that stood out to you?
At the march,
Mm-hmm.
specifically? I think it's like small moments that kind of were really, I mean, like just standing around people and feeling like really unified with them, like stood out to me, like as a thing that I'm not really used to, like large groups of people really speaking their mind, and meeting random strangers who are like, who are you? Why are you here? And asking not just like, oh, where'd you come from? What'd you study? Kind of thing, but like, why are you here? Like, why did you need to be here? And that was kind of cool. Like, that was beautiful to be able to speak candidly and say like, oh, I'm here because this is what I'm passionate about. It's my heart, you know, and them say like, me too.
Were there any points where you got emotional?
Yeah, I think I like kind of teared up a little bit when that little girl, I think it was speaking on stage, and I always think about my students and how, like, you know, they're just like little people right now, and a lot of times people see them as not having big voices or agency, and I just thought, wow, there's like this child here, and I don't know how old they are, but obviously they're a child, and they have the ear of what could turn out to be 1 million people, and that's really powerful, you know. So that just made me just think about my students and my students that I've taught over the years, and how like that's important to make children feel like and know that it's true that they do have a voice, and that if we can help them believe that that is true, and that we can make the world a place where that is true, like what we could do with that, you know. So like I just have those sort of thoughts, and I got pretty emotional like on the bus, and just like I felt it's like one of the happiest moments of my life, just thinking about all the people in the world marching in solidarity and speaking encouraging thoughts and showing up and putting their words into action. That was like a big moment, and I felt like, wow, I just can't believe I'm part of this, you know, like what an amazing experience, and hopefully movement, you know, change.
Mm-hmm. There were a lot of moments that were kind of like where I was just in awe. I don't know if you had this moment too, but when we were coming off the metro to get to the rally,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, I mean, the metro was kind of empty. It wasn't that full.
Yeah,
There were obviously people going there, and we were coming up the stairs, and like we got out, and there were just seas of people.
yeah,
And it was this moment of, oh, this is a lot bigger than just me or just us. Like, we're here.
yeah, it was that. Yes, definitely. Like the sheer number of people, the amount that you saw, and I feel like I was like in a random place in DC. Like I didn't even know exactly where we were. We're just at a burrito shop trying to get some breakfast and coffee, you know, and like people walking by and like, where are they going? And everyone's going to that place. And when we got on the metro, I don't know if this happened for you guys, but when we got on, everyone cheered because they were like, oh, like, you know, more people going to the march. That was cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's pretty awesome. So, anything eventful happened on the return trip?
I don't think so. No, there's nothing I can think of. I mean, I enjoyed a lot chatting with Connie, who sat next to me, and she was talking about just her experience with politics and her life and her beliefs and people in her life, you know, just kind of like hearing her story. And so that was nice, like chatting with her. And then I loved at the end when we were getting back into Atlanta and the bus drivers like thanked us for marching. Like that was really cool. Like I didn't expect to be thanked for marching. Like it's kind of like teaching. Like I don't ever expect to be thanked for teaching. And then they did, and I was like, oh, that's so sweet. And like you sound very genuine and sincere that you were thankful that we did that. I mean, that was like a really beautiful moment. I was like, oh, those sweet men, you know, like just really cool.
Yeah.
More allies.
And kind of unsuspecting.
Yeah. Like you're like, what do they think about us people like going to DC? And then they say that at the end. I mean, that was really sweet.
Yeah, Rollo was kind of stern on the way up.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't real warm and fuzzy.
No, he was. He really kept his feelings locked in tight, but he's a big softie, I think.
Well, and I kind of thought too, and maybe you'll agree with this or not, but like after the day's events, it was pretty clear what we accomplished that day.
Mm-hmm.
Like across the globe.
Yeah.
What we accomplished that day.
Yeah.
And so when Sean thanked us, I kind of felt like maybe it was fed by that. Just the sheer magnitude of it.
Right. Like you think like he maybe was, I don't know, like he was like feeling all the weight of everything that happened, like, and then thanking us for being a part of that. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. They were really nice guys.
Yeah.
And really cool that some sort of miracle happened, obviously, because the bus line that we were with, and they're saying like they pulled all their permits, and then we can pay for one, and we've already paid for it, so then we get to park there, and we didn't know if we were going to. I mean, yeah, that was like another like, oops, there's a glitch happening again, what are we gonna do? And it gets solved.
Yeah, so just to explain a little bit more about that situation. So that happened when we pulled into RFK Stadium.
Mm-hmm. Yes. You want me to explain
Yeah.
more about it? Yeah, so when we arrived in DC and we had to park at the RFK Stadium, now that you mentioned the name, and then the security people there are telling us we can't park there because they pulled the permits, parking permits, which I guess we'd had to pay like $200, something like that, some amount. And then they were like, no, you can't park here. And then Connie just worked her explaining moment, her explaining magic of figuring it out and using all her hand motions. And she, I don't know what happened or how they like figured it all out exactly, but that sounded like it was going to be a little bit of chaos, and then it wasn't. Because afterwards, thinking about us having to get picked up somewhere else, and basically like Rollo, whoever's driving the bus, like coming and finding us all standing in a crowd in front of some building, like afterwards I was like, that would have been like terrible and not good for us. But yeah, it worked out.
Yeah. And do you remember where you got the metro to go back to RFK?
I think it was Smithsonian Metro.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what it was.
Anything eventful on that metro trip?
I can't even remember. I really can't.
Yeah, no big deal.
I mean, it was a little crowded. It seemed like, but yeah, I can't really remember anything eventful on the metro.
And then were you one of the groups that got lost finding the bus?
I don't think so.
Okay.
No, we didn't get lost. But we did return back, and we were like, oh no, like we're a little bit like cutting it close because we were supposed to be back at I think 6, and I really like to be on time, and I get really antsy if I'm not. But then we couldn't even get on the bus, so that was fine. Because Rollo, I don't know, poor man, like had to drive somewhere to sleep in some other city and never knew what Uber was or how to use it, and then to get back. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
But again, it's just like this sort of like, there's so many steps you have to take, and I don't know, I feel like it's not easy organizing all of that, and I don't know if I could have done it.
Yeah. I was pretty cranky by the time the day. I was like, I need some food, because we didn't eat.
Oh. Did y'all like eat snacks, like trail mix? And
we had
yeah, but not like real food, not like, yeah.
So I was cranky by the time we got back to Beth. How did you feel the day after the march?
I think I still felt pretty elated, and again was like pretty like heavily flooded by stuff on social media. So it was still like kind of, lots of people are still being very supportive and encouraging, and I was really tired, took a nap, it was wonderful, you know. But yeah, I felt really good, and then like the next couple of days at work, I felt great too. I thought I would be like super tired, because like I feel like I don't get very much sleep in the week anyways, and then like the weekend's like my catch up, and so I didn't have that, and you know, but and then like just emotionally I felt like we started something, you know, like, or not necessarily me, but just like everyone together started something. And of course, like the organizers of the event and the local organizers and stuff really just put us on this cool momentum. And I remember having conversations with different people at work about, like, they went to the Atlanta march, and they were just saying that was really awesome, and like John Lewis was there, and everyone loves John Lewis in Atlanta, you know, and people telling me they met him and stuff like that. I had a conversation with my principal and his wife, because a couple of days after, I don't really remember exactly when, but there was a lot of articles talking about people who are pro-life and feminists. And so I was asking them, like, do you think you can be pro-life and feminist? You know, not necessarily a black and white question, right? And it was a wonderful conversation that I had with them. It's like, my school's faith-based, so everyone who works there is a Christian. And so it just gets a little murky sometimes with those sort of questions about pro-life and pro-choice and women's rights and feminism and things like that. But it's nice to know that I work somewhere where my beliefs are like respected and supported and encouraged, and we have enough of like, we have a good rapport where we can talk about those things.
Yeah.
Do you think you can be pro-life and feminist? Do you think that people who have abortions are evil? Like, you know, just having like these conversations and feeling like it's a safe space. And that's not every workplace, I'm sure.
And where do you stand on that issue?
On being pro-life and feminist?
Mm-hmm.
Sure. You can be whatever you want to be. But I'm pro-choice. And I personally have like never had an abortion, but I know people really close to me who have, and I think they're wonderful people, and I think they made a hard choice. And I think that unfortunately our society is so focused on making the baby be born that we just forget about how much support women who are going to have a child need, especially single mothers, especially teenage moms. And so like that's such a frustrating issue to me that I think it's hard to be pro-life and feminist and really live that out. But you can be, I'm sure. I think it's hard to fully include people who are pro-life because like if you are pro-choice, then you believe that a woman can do what she wants to do with her body. And feminism sort of stands on that principle. And that kind of butts heads with pro-life. So anyways, all that to say, I think you can really do and be whatever you want to be and be authentic with it, but it can be tricky.
Yeah, I've had that conversation play out.
Yeah. Well, it can be frustrating because you can say till the cows come home what you believe. But if you don't really do it, what does it matter what you say? You know, like if you are so focused on women having a baby, then please be that much more focused on women and children getting the things that they need in the world. I'm not talking about women who are doctors and have had a child. I'm talking about women who live in my neighborhood who we don't have a grocery store. Like, how are you being pro-life for that person? You know? So that's just like where the, what is the saying?
The rubber meets the road.
Yeah, the rubber meets the road. Like, that's where you really have to, like, how do you live that out? And I think that's one thing that's frustrating in government and Republican ideals is that I don't see that. I don't see you supporting teenage girls. I don't see you supporting single moms. I don't see you supporting low-income families who have been marginalized their whole life. It's not their fault that they don't have a high-paying job. You know, they didn't go to a school because nobody invested in that neighborhood. You know, like, there's just, like, a lot of, like, issues that can come up. And so I think that's, like, really frustrating for me in a lot of ways. But I do, like, I have friends who are pro-life and pro-refugee, and I think they're wonderful people, and I'm glad that they have the beliefs that they have because I think that they're authentic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm okay with people having different beliefs than me, of course. But I do think that some opinions are wrong. I think that if your opinion is that Black people are worse than white people, I think you're wrong, and I don't think you're entitled to that opinion. But you're entitled to the opinion that maybe, I don't know. I can't come up with anything off the top of my head. Some opinions are wrong, and that's where I stand.
What do you plan to do now that the march is over?
Well, I guess I've already been doing stuff. I try to call my senators a couple times a week. And a lot of times their voicemails are full, which is a good problem, maybe. And I wrote some letters. I don't know, like, you know, feeling like, okay, I'm doing something, but, like, what am I really doing? I think, like, after the election, I was really inspired to put a lot more effort into, like, creating an environment in my classroom that's focused on anti-bias and, like, being a compassionate group of people and, like, trying to develop curriculum that points that out. And, you know, and so I, like, did some stuff with my students on that, and we, like, do lots of little lessons and little nuggets of things that hopefully, you know, sow a lot of seeds for them to grow up to be, like, really empathetic. And I think, like, there was one day when there was the executive order was passed or signed, whatever, about the global gag rule of providing funds to family planning organizations internationally, and I got so frustrated that I was, like, telling my roommate, because, like, one of my goals in life is, like, by the time I'm 40, I'll be working on my doctorate, or I'll have my doctorate. And I was like, now I can't even get my doctorate because I have to run for office because people just aren't doing what I want them to do, and I guess I need to do something. I don't know if it'll ever, like, go that far, but I do want to volunteer with, like, the Democratic Party because I'm a Democrat through and through. This summer, I have the summer off, and so I've been thinking a lot about how to use that time to, like, really be, I don't know, like, to be an activist, to do something, to, like, put my money where my mouth is, you know, like, not necessarily just say what I believe and post stuff on Facebook, but like really like do something that's going to affect someone. So I'm looking into working at a women's health clinic and working in the refugee population in Clarkston. And I really hope this happens, that I get to be a tour guide at the MLK Museum in Atlanta, because they had to cut a lot of their workers, and then they're on a hiring freeze, so they need like volunteers to give tours. So anyways, I don't know, just like something to like do with the time that I have that's like important and going to actually like leave some sort of impact. Because as much as I like don't think it's fair to close our borders to a certain type of person, you know, or a certain religion, whatever, I gotta do more than just not think that it's fair, you know? So I think it's sometimes hard to feel like you're actually doing anything important, or you're making any kind of difference, or I don't know, just kind of like lose momentum of like, wow, it was like such an amazing experience, and I felt so empowered, and I knew so many people who felt the same way, and then kind of be shut down by like different things that happen in the world and in our government. But I don't know.
Well, it kind of makes me sad to hear you say that you don't necessarily feel like you're making an impact, because as my daughter's preschool teacher, I can testify to you making an impact on her life.
That's
you
sweet.
definitely have.
Aw.
And you do every day, I'm sure. So you said you want to get your doctorate. What do you want to do?
I want to teach teachers. I never want to be out of the classroom, because I love teaching. I love so much being with the kids every day and talking to them, and I love teaching. But I think that I could be a really good teacher of teachers. So yeah, I want to get my doctorate in something education related. Not exactly sure, but yeah. And then I want to like teach teachers how to be passionate people in teaching, because I really think education is like one of the best and almost only way to like level the playing field. And obviously that's not necessarily true in our educational climate right now, but I think it can be. So I think that everyone deserves like to have the best education, if you're like a really rich white kid, or a really poor black kid, or a really poor white kid, or a really rich black kid. I think you all deserve the exact same type of education, the best. And I just think that education is transformative. And it was like, there's some quote about education that I really believe, and I can't remember exactly, but it's like, education is like the inheritance parents, poor parents leave their children, or something like that. And it's rich, you know, like being smart, being a learner, being a change agent, like that is a rich life to lead. So yeah, just want to be in education, doing educational things, and making people care about education as much as I do.
When did you know you wanted to become a teacher? It's kind of off track, but
yeah, I never thought I wanted to be a teacher, and I have lots of teachers in my family, but I never thought I wanted to teach. And then I didn't study it in undergrad. And then when I moved to Atlanta, I worked in a homeless shelter for adolescents, and I hated it. I'm not meant to work with middle school age children. But from that, I got a job teaching at a preschool, and I just loved it. I just loved being with the kids. And then I started working at Suburban, teaching pre-K, and I loved that a lot. And so I was like inspired to go back to school and like professionalize myself, and like learn as much as I could about being a good teacher. And yeah, I loved almost every minute of it. I mean, teaching is hard, and you're always tired, but it's really like good for the soul.
I just remember we went to your master's graduation
ceremony.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
Yes.
Okay, so getting back on track. So, what do you hope will happen going forward?
I think like the biggest, well, not biggest, but the most like current hope that I have is that we elect people who believe similarly to how I believe. Because I think that as much as it feels kind of good to be mad at one person, it's not really just one person's fault or job, you know? So I think that, like, one of my biggest hopes is that we would elect people who, you know, are really for the people and are working for what their constituency wants, and not working for who's going to be their next campaign donor and, you know, how can I, like, get the president on my side kind of thing, which I know politics is about that. So I'm not like a naive person, but I think that's what I want. I want people who have the same, are for the people, for their constituency, you know? I hope that lots of people feel empowered to keep speaking out about things and not silenced, and not like, oh, I can't say anything because it doesn't matter, but like, it does matter, you know, and you should say something. I hope that women and children and men and people of color and different religions just feel that safety. And that's a direct sort of impact of the march, you know, that the march sort of brought to light the fact that all these voices can do something, you know. And I hope that the 4 years passes quickly and that people are safe during those 4 years. People that I care about and people that I don't know, because, you know, just because they don't live here doesn't mean like they shouldn't have a wonderful life too, you know, like just because they happen to be born in Syria, like I still think they deserve to have an amazing life. And so I just hope that any policies that are put in place like don't prevent people from being protected. Yeah. And I hope that, you know, like people change their minds. I hope that people aren't closed-minded, you know, and I hope that we take steps forward to ending racism, which probably will never happen, but I hope that we keep talking about it, and sexism and, you know, all those things.
As an educator, probably would be remiss not to ask you about Betsy DeVos.
Oh yeah.
How does all that make you feel?
That's just so disappointing. It's so disappointing that she is the Secretary of Education. I mean, it's everyone said it. She has no qualifications that would lead her in any way towards education. She has no personal experience with public education, and I don't teach public, but it affects everyone, you know. So disappointing. I'm so disappointed that party lines prevent people from speaking out against a serious injustice, which I think that is. I think that she doesn't deserve to be there. It's not fair. It's not fair that you can just use your money and be whatever you want to be. Like, I'm a celebrity, I can be the president. I'm a billionaire, I can be the Secretary of Education. That's not fair. You didn't work for that. I think that's frustrating that it looks like our country's going backwards, because like when President Barack Obama was like establishing his cabinet, like all those people have like Nobel Peace Prizes and doctorates from MIT and real life experience working in that field. And so it just doesn't feel fair to like, I don't think it's fair to the children and the parents that have to live under that. Yeah, very disappointing. I felt bad. I felt guilty for feeling this way, but I was happy when the public school in DC like protested her coming in, and the guy was like, shame, shame, shame at her. And I was like, you should be ashamed. That is shameful. I think that is shameful. Why does she want that job? Go to the Bahamas and live there, because you can. You could probably buy the Bahamas. Why do you want to be a Secretary of Education? Okay. Rant over.
And what about the bill that they introduced to eliminate the Department of Education.
Which is that the accountability bill? Or?
I don't even know, but there was somebody introduced a bill to eliminate the Department of Education by December of 2018.
Oh, I think I heard something about that. I'm not really sure. I don't have any knowledge on that right now.
Fine.
I feel like I can get really upset about stuff if I just investigate every little thing. Because I saw somebody from a representative in Alabama introduce some sort of legislation to withdraw us from the UN, and I was like, "Are you for real? The UN? Really?" And then I found out he did the same thing 3 years ago. Okay, he just wasted more money, but I was like, okay, well, hopefully that won't happen, because it didn't happen before. So hopefully something like a bill eliminating the Department of Education would. Oh gosh, that would be a bad idea.
Yeah. Will you continue to support the mission of the march by attending future marches, events, rallies?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I went to the march at the protest at the Atlanta airport, which was very cool. I remember a lot about that. And then I showed a video of it to the kids, and it sparked a really cool conversation in the classroom, where they were sort of debating whether or not they agreed with Donald Trump's executive order. And I was like, wait a second, we have to disagree with this. I have to make sure you guys know all the information. And it was a really good conversation with the kids. But yeah, I mean, absolutely. I'm committed to, still standing in solidarity with everyone. And I think I thought when I was at the march, because I remembered that in Seoul, South Korea, they had people protesting at the Capitol for maybe a month or longer, every day. And eventually, their president stepped down or was impeached. And I was like, oh my gosh, what if... So, at the march, I was like, what if we just stayed here? What would that look like for all these people to do that, Or half to do that? What would that look like? I mean, obviously that didn't happen, but I just thought, there's some sort of, movement, and there's a moment and a movement happening out of it. And so, yeah, I'm definitely committed to.
And do you think it's maintaining its momentum?
Well, personally, for me, it's not. I mean, I can tell you that the week after, I was reading every article and calling my senators every single day and talking to people about everything. And as the weeks go on, it's a little bit less. And I think that's natural to everyone, You can't stay hyped up all the time, and it's just not healthy. But yeah, I definitely think the momentum is there. I think that I've had so many conversations with so many people about where they are and stand on all these issues, that just the fact that people are having these conversations, I think, is really important and really big, and a huge part of the process is talking about it. Which is something I think that probably didn't happen a lot during the civil rights movement and Jim Crow and voting rights and stuff like that, so I just think our generation is tending to be a lot more transparent and wanting that, and I think that that's part of the process of a movement.
So you kind of talked about self-care a little bit. What are you doing to take care of yourself, and what do you suggest other people do to cope in self-care?
I don't read everything on Facebook, and I'm not on it throughout the day, and I know a lot of people have jobs where they can surf Facebook and stuff throughout the day, and I don't, so I can't. I think that's one thing, is to kind of keep yourself from taking in every little thing, and so that's just one thing, is kind of limiting yourself to what your capacity. You should definitely stay up to date on the things that you're interested in staying up to date on, but you just can't think of everything. And I mean, I'm just living my life like normal. I'm hanging out with my friends, and we're playing trivia, and I'm planning on going on vacations, and like, I don't know, like my life hasn't stopped, and I'm still like the social person that I was. I just am making sure that also activism is still like a part of what I do with my life, you know, like, yeah. So I think that people should, you know, spend time with their family and spend time with their friends and drink beer and play board games and go dancing and have fun, and live your life, because you should, like, you have a good life, you should do that. But you should also stand up for what you believe in, and you should find ways to do that are not overloading you.
Yeah, fortunately, we don't actually have Death Eaters coming to...
Yeah.
So we can still have a little bit of fun.
Right, we can still go to Hogsmeade.
Mm-hmm. Are there... Well, so the question on here is, how have you felt about the new government's activities since the march? And we covered a lot of ground. Are there any other issues that have come up that you care to embellish in?
Yeah, I mean, we've mentioned like the global gag rule. That was devastating to me. I mean, obviously it's not personally affecting me, but I have friends who work in international organizations overseas who are like just considering that this is an issue that they're going to have to deal with. And also it just makes me so sad that someone would want to oppress people in other parts of the world. Like, just, I don't understand. So that's pretty devastating to me. I think I'm super frustrated with the repeal of the Affordable Health Care Act. Like, personally, I don't have health care right now, and although I could get it through the exchange, it would be like $300 a month. And that is not Obama's fault. That is Nathan Deal's fault, because he did not take the medical expansion. And so we didn't get the free federal money that we all pay into in our federal income tax. So I try to make sure I tell people that anytime they say anything about the ACA, because that is something that we don't think about, so then complain about your premiums. But people in Nevada who did take the payout are paying $50 a month. So, you know, it's just kind of like understanding all the facts. That's important to me. Also, like, sexual orientation and identity is protected in the ACA, and if it's repealed, it won't be. And so I have friends who work at Health and Human Services who are told not to pursue those kinds of discriminatory cases. And that's frustrating, because I think that those things should be protected, and I can't believe that they weren't, and I can't believe that people want to go back to a place where they're not. So that's really frustrating. And that's another thing I like call and talk about to my senators, is that if you're going to replace it, like, replace it with something good, like help people, okay? And it's just it's a different philosophy, right? When you're talking about Republican ideals of healthcare and Democrat ideals of healthcare, and you're coming from these Republicans are like financially minded, and Democrats are more like socially minded, you know? And so I align with that, because I think that makes us a healthier society. And I don't think that like money is the end all be all. And so I just don't understand why you wouldn't want to protect identity and orientation. I don't understand why you wouldn't want to protect pregnancy. I don't understand that as a philosophy. I understand wanting to save money, but not at the risk of people getting cancer and dying when it could have been prevented, you know? So that's a frustrating issue. But Donald Trump has said we're all going to have health care and we don't have to worry. So I guess I should just believe him, right? I'm not happy with the new administration. I'm not happy with a lot of the cabinet members. I'm not happy with any tweet I've ever seen Donald Trump do. I'm not happy with the embarrassment that I feel for our country and the way that we're acting. So I'm super dissatisfied with the refugee ban. I just think we should remember never again, and that this is a refugee crisis exactly like what happened in Germany, and it's so inhumane. It's so inhumane. It's silly to think that every Muslim is a terrorist. It's just the fear. It's just too much. I can't really fathom it, so it bothers me. I want Obama back. I want Hillary. I want Prime Minister Trudeau. Like, I want somebody that's for the people, and that is for being not only financially concerned.
Yeah, yesterday I found myself thinking, Canada's not so bad.
Yeah.
Like, for the first time ever.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to live there because of the winters, but I would want to live there because of how wonderful everyone in Canada is. Well, that was a frustrating thing that I was reading, like, this annotation of Donald Trump's tweets since he's become president, and I didn't think about this because I don't do Twitter, so I don't, like, really follow anything he says on there, but of course I get, like, the news updates, but I didn't know about that. He tweeted about the knife attack in Paris, but not the mosque attack in was it Quebec?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so that was, like, a little double standard, right? Like, that's a tragedy where people actually died in the mosque in Canada, and no one died in Paris. The attacker was completely disarmed. I don't know. It's just, that's like that mentality of not extending condolences or grace or understanding to a people group. That's sad.
Yeah. What do you fear?
What do I fear
about this administration or the future?
I fear going backwards in the trajectory of our country. Like, I think it's wonderful. We're in this place where finally a lot of people are accepting gay marriage and coming into contact with people that are gay and finding them wonderful because they are, and accepting people of color and women. And I just feel like there's, like, at least in my perspective, we're at this place where that's sort of going forward. But when you start to, like, not protect those people anymore legally, it comes into, like, social society, you know, like, culture affects government, and government affects culture, and, you know, those kinds of things. And so I fear that we're going to go backwards, and it's like, I don't want that. Like, I don't want that for our country. Like, I want everyone to have a space here and a place here and feel protected and safe and honored. And so, yeah, I fear that. I don't really personally, like, fear, like, any sort of persecution. Like, I am not Muslim, and although, like, I'm a woman and I work in the workplace, like, I work at, like, a really awesome place that, like, respects me. So I guess I just, like, fear for, like, society in general and people that I do know who would be affected by that.
Yeah. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything else that we didn't talk about?
I think everyone should march and protest and attend events where there's lots of different voices being heard, like, really heard, you know, not just arguing with each other at, like, a town hall or something, but, like, a place where people are being heard, you know? So I think everyone should do that.
That was one of the other things that I think I got from the march was everybody just wants to have a voice.
Mm-hmm.
And they want to feel like their voice is being heard.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And a lot of that idea that you're talking about, people wanting to be heard, I mean, that's echoed in middle America white men. They want to be heard. They want their farms to be taken care of. They want their children to have the same opportunities. I mean, everybody kind of wants the same thing, but our ways of going about getting them and our fear of how they're being stripped from us, I mean, that's what really is divisive, I think. And that's where politicians can kind of like sow their seeds is in those spaces. But at the end of the day, that's really all anyone wants, is to be heard and to feel like, someone is on their side. So,
do you think anything at this point, what, if anything, will help mend the divisiveness in the country?
I don't know. I mean, I think that, like, it really starts more locally than in the Senate. Like, I really think it's by being friends with your neighbor and by being interested in your coworker and their thoughts and their beliefs, and by just being open. Like, I have a friend now who is a Republican, and I have a lot of friends who are, but like a close friend who is, and who just has a differing belief than I do about stuff, and not necessarily like against things that I believe in, just different. And it's been really edifying to talk to him and feel like he listens to me, and then I listen to him, and that's just like one small friendship. But I think it's that if that happens a lot with a lot of people, then that's where real change happens. It happens in communities and neighborhoods and cities. It doesn't, if the government regulates how we feel about a different race, like, that's not really gonna help our world. I think that it's just smaller instances of being open.
One of the things that Morna said was she wanted us to name our bus.
Oh yeah.
In the interview. So which bus were you on?
Okay, the Peach Bus. What were we on? What was? Do we have a number or
no?
Well,
we weren't.
Peach Pack.
Yeah, we weren't. We weren't part of like the Georgia bus route. So we didn't have, or the Georgia March group. Organizing group, so we didn't have like a number, an official.
Were we
number.
like U.S. Coachways? Was that our?
That was our
bus, like, service.
Right, and then after we kind of reformed our group into the Impeach Pack.
Impeach Pack. So we're the Impeach Pack bus.
Yeah,
because we're the Impeach Pack part. Our bus is the Impeach Pack bus.
Did you have anything you wanted to donate?
Yeah, I mean, I have videos and photos that I should send over somehow.
Awesome.
I have a lot.
All right. Anything else?
I don't think so. I mean, thank you to you interviewing me. Thank you to Morna. Thank you to the Women's March organizers everywhere. So
one thing that we might want to other thing to touch on is that your seat to DC was funded.
Oh yeah. So that was really cool, because I wanted to go really badly, but thinking about paying $150 or something like that, $155 was kind of a little daunting. So the fact that people donated all that money and that some of it like ended up sponsoring seats, I mean, that was really amazing and made me feel really like good about going, like and really thankful for that opportunity to get to go, as someone else sponsored, who, I don't know who these people are, but they thought it was important for people to go. So yeah, that was great.
Yay. I'm glad you were able to join us.
Yeah, I'm glad you thought of me and my friends who wanted to go. So
yeah, you were you were the connection between me and Connie. So
oh yeah, oh yeah,
you're the logical choice.
Oh, that's great.
I was hoping that Miss Ruff could have gone too.
Me too. I thought maybe she might go, but I mean, I know it's probably difficult for her.
Yeah. So I have a feeling every day is unpredictable for her.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you. This was great. It was really therapeutic.